Okay, now I just said that we want to estimate the parameters for the model. Now that's not just true for regression models, it's also true for classification models. So there are parameters within J48 that we might estimate. There are parameters within some of the other models that we've talked about. Even though they're classification, we still have the same task of estimating parameters for the model. Okay, let's take a look at this quote here. So remember that all models are wrong. So we have a model here. We don't really expect it to be perfect, right? The practical question is, how wrong do they have to be in order to be not useful? So this is by the famous statistician George Box. Okay, so next we want to talk about what we call the loss function, but actually we've already talked about it. This is an example of what we mean by the loss function. But let's just take a little different perspective on it right now. So in this set of slides, we're going to denote the loss function. I guess I'll use red. We're going to define the loss function L as having is going to compare the actual value and the predicted value. Remember, this stands for the predicted value, and I guess and so it's going to be a function of both of these, which is what we said when we talked about RMSE, if you go back and look at it. And we want to use the notation for the predicted value. Remember, we said we're going to use y hat for the predicted value. Here we might sometimes denote this as f of x hat, just to indicate that it's the predicted value. And furthermore, we saw that here our green model, the model depends on the parameters. So it depends on what we choose for A1, A2, A3, and however many parameters there are. And so we're going to denote those parameters in general with something called W. And that's just from the reason they use W is because this concept of loss applies not just to this kind of regression problem, but other types where W is more common to be used. So they use W. But anyway, this W represents sort of this list of whatever the parameters are, and we just throw it in there as an extra thing there, just to remind us that those are part of what we're talking about, that the parameters are included here when we talk about this particular model, right? Once we have to choose a set of parameters to get a particular parabola. So anyway, we have this loss function, and so we already said that one loss function would be the RMSE, or we could use the MAD, and we could think of other, why did that happen? MAD, and we could think of other ways to measure the loss.